Welcome back to the Deep Dive, everyone. We are really glad you're here. Today, our mission is to explore a pretty critical AI governance issue.
Yeah, it's one that is completely flying under the radar for a lot of people.
Totally. And it affects literally every single organization out there that's using artificial intelligence right now. We are pulling from this really fascinating piece of writing by Satya Nadella, the chairman and CEO of Microsoft.
Right, and he's exploring this idea that companies might actually be um, accidentally giving away their most valuable intellectual property when they use off-the-shelf AI tools.
Which is wild to think about. I mean, the hook here is this core tension where in this massive rush to adopt AI, companies are essentially paying for intelligence twice. First, with actual money, paying the invoice.
Yeah.
And then secondly, with their proprietary knowledge.
Yeah, it's a huge governance blind spot.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because when you buy standard enterprise software, it's a closed loop, right?
Yeah.
You pay the vendor, install the tool, and you just move on.
Right, but this is entirely different. It forces a total reevaluation of how value and knowledge are exchanged. We're watching this fundamental shift in corporate governance where the usual buyer-seller dynamic has just been completely turned inside out.
And to really understand the mechanics of this governance nightmare, we kind of have to look backward first, right?
Exactly. We need to look at how economists traditionally viewed the sale of information. So there's this concept called the information paradox, which was coined by the Nobel Prize-winning economist Kenneth Arrow.
Right, Arrow's paradox. This is all about the flaw in trying to sell an intangible idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Historically, if you had a brilliant invention, say before intellectual property laws really existed, and you wanted to sell it to me, well, I'm not going to buy it until you actually tell me what it is.
As I don't know its value yet.
Precisely. But the moment you reveal the idea to me, I have the information. I haven't paid for it, and my incentive to actually pay you just drops to zero.
Right, so the seller assumes all the risk. They risk giving away their knowledge entirely just to try and sell it.
Yeah, and society fixed that market failure through patents. A patent lets an inventor disclose their idea publicly, but legally keep the right to profit from it.
Right. Patents built that protective boundary. But Nadella points out that in the age of generative AI, this dynamic has completely flipped. He calls it the reverse information paradox.
And this is where the alarm bells should really be ringing for any leader listening to this. In the AI age, the seller of the model is not the one risking their IP.
It's the buyer.
Yes. The buyer is the one risking giving away their proprietary knowledge just to make the tool they bought actually useful for their business.
Because, an AI model right out of the box doesn't know anything about, say, your specific supply chain bottlenecks.
Right, or your unique customer retention strategies.
Exactly. So to make the tool valuable at all, you have to feed it your internal workflows. The better you want the model to perform, the more of your internal context you have to just hand over.
Which creates a massive information asymmetry. As you use the AI tool, the seller, the model providers, is continuously learning about your organization. They see your data structures, your priorities, your operational cadences.
Meanwhile, the buyer learns next to nothing about what the seller is gaining from that.
Right. You have zero visibility into how your operational data is being used to optimize their underlying foundational models for, all their other customers.
It's like hiring an incredibly smart consultant, but to get them to do their job, you have to hand over literally all your trade secrets. And you have absolutely no idea who else they're sharing those secrets with.
That is a perfect analogy. And what's fascinating here is how patents solved that original paradox, right? But AI governance right now just lacks any equivalent solution for this new reverse paradox.
So I want to pivot and look at how this knowledge actually leaks out. Because we're not talking about some massive data heist where an employee accidentally uploads the entire source code to a public chatbot.
No, it's much subtler than that.
Yeah, it's a slow leak.
It happens through what the source material calls intelligence exhaust.
Intelligence exhaust.
Yeah. The model learns from these microscopic traces that your workforce leaves behind as they interact with it. It's the specific syntax of the prompts your engineers write.
Or the plugins your internal AI agents use.
Exactly. But crucially, it's the human corrections. When an AI gets something wrong or gives a suboptimal result, and a human fixes it.
Ah, those human corrections are totally the gold mine. Like if the AI spits out a B- financial projection and your top analyst goes in and manually tweaks it into an A+ projection,
Right.
that analyst is essentially distilling years of their own hard-earned institutional know-how into just that single interaction.
Yep, trace by trace. Every single one of those corrections bridges the gap between just generic intelligence and highly specialized proprietary expertise. The source text actually references the economist Friedrich Hayek here.
Oh, yeah, his concept of particular intelligence.
Yeah. Right. Hayek argued that the most valuable knowledge in an economy isn't, general scientific facts. It's the localized knowledge of time, place, and circumstance.
And that exhaust captures your company's particular intelligence. It knows what you value and how you measure success.
Exactly. And under standard commercial terms, those microscopic corrections are just leaking right back to the model provider.
Which sets up this massive irony in current AI governance. I mean, the major AI model providers built these foundational models by relying heavily on the legal doctrine of fair use, right?
Yeah.
They scraped the public internet, consuming vast amounts of public data to innovate.
Before we go any further on that specific point, I just want to pause and clarify for you listening. This whole debate over fair use versus restrictive licensing is incredibly contentious right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, in corporate, legal, legislator circles. And we are not endorsing either side of this debate, whether it's the tech giants defending their data scraping or the creators and enterprise customers demanding stricter data rights.
All right, we aren't taking sides at all. We are just impartially reporting on the market dynamics that are laid out in the source material, just to help you understand the landscape.
Exactly. It's a vital distinction. But looking purely at the mechanics described in the piece, the irony is very real. These same providers relied on open access to train their models, but then they turn around and impose these highly restrictive terms on their own enterprise customers.
Right, like forbidding customers from using the model's outputs for distillation, meaning you can't use their AI to train your own smaller private AI.
All while they reserve the right to learn from your usage telemetry, they've essentially created a one-way mirror.
The provider's right to learn is protected, but the customer's right to learn is contractually blocked. But here's where it gets really interesting, because I need to play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure, go for it.
Isn't this just how the cloud works? I mean, for 15 years, we've been handing our data over to major cloud providers. We give them databases, they give us software and storage. Why is this AI dynamic any different?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the distinction between the cloud era and the AI era is the entire crux of this governance challenge. In the cloud era, you were accumulating data.
Right.
The cloud provider gave you a highly secure digital locker, and you just put your files in it. But that storage infrastructure didn't learn how to be a better HR department just by holding your HR records.
It's totally inert. It just sat there until you searched for something.
Right. But in the AI era, organizations are accumulating learning. The infrastructure is active now. It processes, it infers, it adapts. And if that learning only flows in one direction from your employees' brains into the vendor's model, then all the economic value consolidates to the owners of the AI infrastructure.
Not the creators of the knowledge. Wow, you're basically paying a subscription fee to train someone else's product.
Exactly.
That actually brings up that quote from Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir, from the source text. He says technical customers want control over their compute, their models, their data stack, and their alpha, like their competitive edge.
Yeah, they want to own their means of production.
And means of production. It's such an industrial age term, but applying it to the age of intelligence is just spot on.
It really is. Your proprietary learning loop is your modern factory floor. If you don't govern your intelligence exhaust, you are just silently transferring ownership of that factory to your vendors.
So to stop that bleeding, the source argues that organizations have to draw new lines, establishing what it calls a trust boundary.
Right. And a trust boundary is way more than just a traditional IT firewall.
Because a firewall just keeps bad actors out of your network.
Exactly. A trust boundary is this architectural and legal perimeter designed to protect both your human capital and your token capital so they can compound internally instead of leaking outward.
Wait, okay, pause for a second. I know human capital, that's the talent, the expertise of the workforce. But what is token capital? I don't think I've ever heard that applied to corporate governance before.
It's actually a brilliant way to think about AI assets. Token capital is the synthesized digital intelligence your company generates. You know how AI breaks text down into tokens?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, your token capital is the accumulated, tokenized representation of your company's workflows. It's those highly optimized system prompts, the synthetic data you generate, and that historical log of human corrections we talked about.
Wow. So it's basically the digital manifestation of your IP, just formatted so machine learning models can actually read it.
Precisely. And the trust boundary ensures that your token capital stays inside the building.
So it has to be a hard boundary. Absolutely nothing. No telemetry, no exhaust crosses over without explicit governed consent.
Right. And it requires enterprises to demand very specific governance rights from their vendors. Most importantly, the right to use model outputs to fine-tune and train their own internal systems.
Because if you use a massive frontier model to classify data, you have to be legally allowed to use that classified data to train a smaller model that you actually own.
Yeah, because accountability requires sovereignty. You can't align an AI to your internal compliance standards if you don't control how it processes its own mistakes.
So what does this all mean for the listener? Because it sounds amazing in theory, build a wall around your learning, own your means of production. But how does an organization actually execute this if they don't own the underlying foundational AI model?
That's the big practical question. Most companies don't have billions of dollars to build a model from scratch.
Right.
But the source material lays out a strategic playbook for this. It's a framework to establish this trust boundary while still using external models. And it's built around 5 core principles, which they call the 5 Cs.
Okay, let's break these down. The 5 Cs. The first one is control.
Control is fundamentally about creating private evil evaluation frameworks. It's how you define what good looks like for your specific company.
And how do you capture that functionally?
By building a golden data set. You have your absolute best domain experts review AI outputs and meticulously grade them. You log those grades in your own secure database. You are capturing organizational memory.
So you own the grading rubric, essentially.
Mhm.
And even if the model provider changes their base model tomorrow, you can just test the new one against your private evals to make sure it still works for you.
Exactly. You own the rubric, not the student. That moves us to the second C, which is capability.
Right, capability.
This is about building proprietary learning environments entirely within your own tenant boundary. Technically, this means using virtual private clouds or dedicated instances where you take outputs from the big models and use them to train smaller open source models on your real workflows.
Got it. So I could use a massive external model to generate, say, thousands of perfect legal contracts, and then I use those examples to train a tiny model that lives purely on my own servers.
Yep, the knowledge extraction happens, but the capability stays in-house, which enables the third C, choice.
Choice. The source emphasizes decoupling the orchestration layer from any single AI model provider.
Right. The orchestration layer is basically the software middleware that takes a user's request and routes it to an AI model.
Right, so if you hard code that layer to only talk to one specific proprietary model, you're totally captive to that vendor, their pricing, their latency, their terms of service.
And if they deprecate the model your supply chain relies on, your operations just break.
That actually brings up this great concept from the text. I love this idea of the veteran versus the generalist. It's like asking yourself, are you training an intern who leaves every night and shares everything you taught them with the whole world? Or are you building a loyal veteran who stays in-house?
Yeah, that's exactly the right mindset. If any one model is taken away, do you still have your veteran capability? Decoupling ensures you do. And that independence drives the fourth C, cost.
Cost. Because frontier models are incredibly expensive to run for every single little task.
Right. If your orchestration layer is decoupled, you can implement dynamic routing. The system looks at a prompt, sees it's just a simple HR email summary, and automatically routes it to your cheap internal open source model.
Instead of paying top dollar to use a supercomputer for it.
Exactly. You achieve massive cost efficiency without sacrificing quality because you're still measuring everything against those private evals from step 1.
Right. And bringing all of those together leads us to the final C, compound.
Compound is the flywheel effect. When you have control over your evals, the capability to train internally, the choice to route dynamically, and the cost efficiency, you create a continuous learning loop.
Nadella calls it a hill climbing machine.
Yeah. Every interaction makes your internal systems incrementally better. You save money on inference costs. You reinvest that into having human experts generate more high-quality evals, which refines your internal models even more.
And the value of the firm just compounds over time.
This raises an important question, though, because if a company fails to secure these 5 Cs, they aren't just losing their own data, they are actively subsidizing and training their future competitors.
Wow, yeah. By freely giving away that localized intelligence, you're manually training the off-the-shelf tools that some new startup is just going to buy access to tomorrow.
You're eroding your own competitive moat.
It really is the defining governance challenge right now.
Yeah.
You have to extract utility from external AI without sacrificing the exact institutional knowledge that makes your company viable in the first place.
It means treating AI as a strategic asset that has to be fenced in, measured, and just continuously optimized.
Which brings us to a larger question for you listening as we wrap up today. Think about how this shifts the long-term landscape of the economy. Like, consider the future of mergers and acquisitions. Historically, you acquire a competitor for market share, or physical infrastructure, or a client list. But if the value of an enterprise fundamentally shifts to this compounding token capital we discussed, how does that change corporate valuations? A decade from now? Will your competitor just buy the institutional know-how that you spent today teaching the model? Or will companies be acquired purely to get access to their proprietary evals and that localized intelligence secured inside their trust boundary?
It's a massive paradigm shift.
It really is. You might not be buying a business at all. You might just be buying the distillation of their organizational memory. And that is a governance challenge every listener needs to evaluate within their own organization today before that knowledge permanently leaks away. Thank you for listening to AI Governance, Strategy and the Future of Intelligent Organizations. Before you go, we'd love to hear your perspective. What stood out to you most in today's discussion? Do you agree with the conclusions, or do you see the issue differently? Leave a comment and join the conversation. Your insights often inspire future episodes. If you found this episode valuable, follow the podcast for weekly conversations exploring AI governance, strategy, responsible AI, and the future of intelligent organizations. And if you know someone who would benefit from this discussion, please share the episode with them. Together, we're building a community that goes beyond the headlines to understand what AI really means for organizations and society.